(2019년 10월 6일) 수요일 저녁, 플로리다주 포트마이어스는 29도로 더운 날이었습니다. 멜리사 몬타네즈와 6개월 된 그녀의 남자친구인 웨이드 윌슨은 바에서 술도 마시고 음악도 들으며 즐거운 시간을 보내기로 했죠. 그래서 멜리사는 2015년형 다치 엘캣을 끌고 그곳에 도착하였죠. 그리고 남자친구인 웨이드와 만난 그녀는 즐거운 시간을 보내던 중 다른 여자 얘기가 나오면서 상황은 조금씩 격렬한 말다툼으로 번져갔습니다. 그러던 중 웨이드는 차에서 뭔가를 가져와야겠다는 얘기를 하며 밖으로 나갔습니다. 여전히 화가 나 있던 멜리사는 잠시 뒤 웨이드와 더 대화를 하기 위해 따라 나갔고 곧 자신의 차량인 다치 엘캣이 주차장을 빠져나간 것을 목격했습니다. 웨이드도 주차장이 없었기 때문에 남자친구가 자신을 버리고 차를 뺏어가 버렸다는 현실을 깨닫게 되었죠. 차도 없이 발이 묶였고 집에 가고 싶지도 않았던 멜리사는 친구인 에이미에게 연락했습니다. 그 소식을 듣게 된 에이미는 곧바로 데리러 와서 자신의 집으로 함께 갔습니다. 이미 지칠 대로 지쳐버린 멜리사는 곧 잠에 들었죠. 그리고 다음날 아침 8시, 멜리사는 여전히 몽롱한 상태에서 휴대폰을 확인했습니다. 거기엔 낯선 번호로 여러 차례 부재중 전화가 와 있었습니다. 곧바로 그 번호로 전화를 걸자 전화를 받은 웨이드는 분노에 찬 목소리로 소리를 지르며 당장 만나자고 요구해왔습니다. 멜리사는 평소 폭력적인 성향과 마약 문제가 있던 웨이드를 만나는 건 두려웠기에 자신의 직장으로 찾아오라고 했습니다. 거기다 에이미에게도 와달라고 부탁하였죠. 그리고 시간이 지나 웨이드가 차를 몰고 왔을 때 뭔가 이상하다는 것을 알았습니다. 그가 운전해온 차는 어제 훔쳐간 다치 엘캣이 아니라 처음 보는 차였기 때문이었죠.
So, where did you agree to meet him?
Mila's spa.
Now, when you arrived at Mila's spa, did you see your Hellcat?
No.
Did you see a different car?
Yes.
And was it a car that you recognized?
No.
I'm showing you States Exhibit 5. Does this look like the car that he was driving?
Yes.
And again, was that a car you had ever seen before?
No.
Now, when you got there, did you get out and try to talk to him?
Yes.
And again, what were you trying to talk to him about?
I went to the driver's side window. He wrote it down. I said, "Where are my keys? Where's my car?" He was calm and just saying, "Get in the car, get in the car." And it escalated quickly.
Did you agree to get in the car?
No.
And when you would not agree to get in the car, how did he act?
Violent, aggressive, tried to pull me in the car physically, and I resisted, got plank style so that he could not grab me into the vehicle.
When you say you got plank style, could you just show the jurors what you mean by that?
And I was being pulled into the car by my dress.
Okay, so for the record, you just stood up and put your hands straight above your head.
Yes, so that I was not being able to be budged into the vehicle.
And you said he's pulling at your dress.
Yes.
Can you describe in more detail how he's pulling at your dress?
He's pulling dress, probably a little hair, everything, and then the dress starts to rip off of my body.
And what happens after that?
Once he realizes that the threads were becoming, I was getting away from him and he was still holding onto the dress, he opens the car door, obviously forgets to put it in park. The car starts to roll forward. He tackles me to the ground. The car grazes both of our legs and I'm pummeled to the ground.
How hard did he push you to the ground?
I'm sorry, I don't recall. This is also fast and he's very heavy and I'm 5'2", he's 6'6", so.
Now, what happens after you are pushed to the ground?
I start to get beat.
Describe what you mean when you say he was beating you.
It all went so fast and so slow, whether it be punches, slapping, choking, that kind of nature. Yes.
Now, you mentioned that the fight is happening around the car. Does the fight move at some point?
Yes, so I either get dragged, pulled, can't remember, by my hair, arm, or dress, to I'm trying to reason with him, trying to talk to him, but there's nobody behind those eyes anymore. So there was no reasoning with him. I got to the front of the staircase, and I'm holding onto that, and a crowd begins to develop. I'm expecting people to help, call 911, so I'm just trying to bide my time at that point as quickly as help can get there, and that's not working either. I'm starting to get punched and grabbed and choked and all kinds of things again. Somehow we move up to the upper level. I'm trying to convince him, let's just go in Mila's spa. We'll talk about it there. We're safe there.
멜리사는 결국 도망칠 수 있었고 근처 가게로 달려가 안전을 확보했습니다. 그리고 잠시 후인 오전 8시 48분 포트 마이어스 경찰이 싸움이 벌어진 현장에 도착했습니다. 여러 건의 911 신고 전화에서 한 남성이 여성을 폭행하고 있다고 제보하였죠. 팀 맥코믹 경관은 포트 마이어스 다운타운의 밀라 스파에서 멜리사를 만났고 그녀는 웨이드 윌슨을 가해자로 지목했습니다. 그리고 끔찍했던 폭행에 대해 진술했고 웨이드가 검은색 닛산 베르사를 운전하는 것을 봤다고 언급했습니다. 그때쯤 웨이드는 이미 현장을 도주한 상태였고 경찰은 그의 체포를 위한 수배령을 내렸습니다. 경찰국에서 멜리사는 형사와의 인터뷰에서 상세한 정보를 제공했습니다. 먼저 친한 친구를 통해 소개를 받아 사귄 지 6개월이 되었다고 하였죠. 하지만 처음 2개월 동안은 함께 살았지만 나머지 3개월 반 동안은 감옥에 수감되어 있었다고 하였습니다. 수감 중에도 멜리사는 그와 연락을 유지했고 출소 후 2번째 기회를 주기로 했습니다. 그 결정을 본 다른 사람들은 헤어지라고 권유하지만 멜리사는 적어도 자신에게는 손찌검을 한 적이 없었기 때문에 괜찮다고 하였죠. 그렇지만 당시 웨이드의 전과 기록을 보면 2010년 이후부터 사기나 무단 자택 침입, 신체적 학대 등의 혐의로 20회 이상 체포된 상습적인 범죄자였습니다. 그리고 이후 법정에서 웨이드의 친부는 아들의 성장 과정에 대한 추가적인 증언을 제공하였습니다.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Steven Testaseca.
Mr. Testaseca, where are you employed?
I'm self-employed.
What type of work do you do?
Window and door replacement.
Are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your wife's name? How old are you, sir?
46.
You know someone by the name of Wade Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know Wade Wilson?
He's my son.
How old were you when you found out you were going to be his father?
14 or 15.
How old was his mother at the time?
A year younger than me.
Now, were either of you in a position at that age to be able to raise him?
No, ma'am.
Was he placed up for adoption?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was he adopted by?
Candy and Steve Wilson.
And did they have any connection to you or Wade Wilson's mother?
They went to church with Wade's mother's parents.
So that was how they connected and ended up raising Wade Wilson?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do they have any other children?
Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters.
Now, at some point, did you and Wade Wilson connect?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was Wade Wilson when he connected with you?
18.
And was he wanting to connect with you because you were his biological father?
Yes.
And up until that point, had you ever met him?
No, ma'am.
Did you end up attempting to have a relationship with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he seem to want to have a relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you have phone calls often?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have occasions where you would see each other?
No. I went up and visited him one time in Tallahassee.
Okay. Now, did he often ask you for money?
Yes, ma'am.
Did your relationship turn into a situation where he was just asking for your help?
Yes, ma'am.
형사와의 면담이 계속되는 동안 멜리사는 웨이드를 매우 두려워한다고 표현했으며 만약 그의 차에 태워졌다면 지금 이야기를 들려줄 수 없었을 거라고 얘기했습니다. 그리고 아침에 웨이드가 모르는 번호로 전화를 걸어왔다고 하였고 그 중에는 경찰로 신고가 들어온 번호도 있었습니다. 경찰은 곧 그 번호가 케이프 코럴에 사는 크리스틴 엘 멜튼이라는 것을 알아냈고 멜리사는 그 이름을 처음 들어본다고 했습니다. 그래서 먼저 경찰은 곧바로 튜더 드라이브 4000번지에 있는 크리스틴 멜튼의 집으로 향했습니다. 그런데 그곳에는 이미 관할 경관들이 도착해 있던 상태였습니다.
We have an update on a story that we've been following all day. Cape Coral police confirmed that they are investigating the death of a woman who lived on Tudor Drive. That woman has been identified as 35-year-old Christine Melton. Viewers tell us she is a waitress, and those we spoke to said they didn't see Melton very often and were wondering what happened.
Well, you think something bad has happened because you don't get yellow crime scene tape put up for no reason.
이미 그곳엔 경찰의 신고가 들어왔었고 웨이드가 멜리사에게 전화를 했었던 바로 그 휴대폰의 주인이 사망한 상태였죠. 지인들과 가족들은 그녀가 평소에 얼마나 착하고 소중한 사람이었는지 세상에 둘도 없는 사람이라고 묘사하였습니다. 그리고 케이프 코럴 경찰은 그녀의 죽음을 놓고 사고가 아닌 살인이라 판단하고 수사에 착수하였습니다. 주목할 만한 점은 그녀의 차량인 검은색 닛산 베르사가 주차장에서 사라졌다는 사실이었죠. 그래서 경찰은 웨이드와 크리스틴의 차량을 찾기 위한 집중을 강화시켰고 크게 확대된 수색이 시작되었습니다. 그리고 얼마 지나지 않아서 약 8km 떨어진 곳에서 포트 마이어스 경찰국 경관인 팀 맥코믹은 멜리사의 폭행에 관한 정보를 받았고 조스 크램 레스토랑 주차장에서 웨이드의 임상차기와 일치하는 차량과 운전자를 발견했습니다. 그럼 그의 증언을 들어보겠습니다.
Back in October of 2019, were you a police officer at that time?
Yes, I was.
And how long had you been working as a police officer at that time?
Just under 13 years, I believe.
And what were you doing? What were your duties and roles as the police officer back in 2019?
At that time, I was a senior patrol officer, and I was on Alpha shift and assigned to patrol.
What's a senior patrol officer do, sir?
Basically, we respond to calls for service, assist the public in any way, shape, or form, and protect and serve the city of Fort Myers.
When you say alpha shift, what do you mean?
That's the assigned shift. Shifts are broken into 12-hour periods, and I was on the Alpha shift from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Now, specifically directing your attention to the 7th of October of 2019, were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
Did you have occasion to become involved in an investigation involving a battery that occurred at a spa known as Mila's Spa, involving a young lady by the name of Melissa Montanez?
Yes, I did.
And what was the extent of your involvement in that particular case?
I was called to the scene of a reported battery on West First Street in front of the Mila Spa. Upon arrival with other officers, we made contact with the victim.
And was the investigation ultimately turned over to an officer to conduct that?
That's correct.
Okay. And what did you do in response to turning that investigation over to that officer?
I turned the investigation over to the officer, and I patrolled the area to see if the identified subject would possibly still be in the area.
And were you able to locate him?
Not at the initial time, no.
Did you receive information with regards to the whereabouts of a individual who later became known to you as Mr. Wade Wilson?
Yes, I did.
And when you received that information, what did you do in response?
I responded to the area and looked for the described vehicle and the person that I had identified as Wade Wilson by his driver's license photo and the photo in the LCSO records.
And when you say you went to a specific location, which location was that?
It was Joe's Crab Shack on West First Street.
And when you made contact with that individual at Joe's Crab Shack, were you also wearing a body cam?
Yes, I was.
What exactly is a body cam?
A body-worn camera is a camera that all police officers issue, and the standard policy at Fort Myers Police Department, as most police departments, is that as soon as you as soon as you get the call, you activate your body camera. Also in our cars, we have an automatic system where if you turn on the overhead lights, it automatically starts your body camera.
And were you wearing a body camera on that particular date and time?
Yes, I was.
McCormick, I'm showing you some precinct marked with state number 34. I asked you to take a look at that item. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what does that appear to be?
That appears to be the parking lot of Joe's Crab Shack.
Okay. Does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the parking lot there at Joe's Crab Shack?
Yes, it does.
And I'm also handing you with some precinct marked with state number 35. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
How do you recognize that?
This is the recording of my body cam.
Okay. And does that body cam fairly and accurately depict your interaction with Mr. Wilson on the 7th of October of 2019?
Yes, by my initials it does. You showed it to me in your office and I initialed it.
Okay. And it's essentially the same or similar conditions when you last saw it?
Yes.
So we're looking here at State's Exhibit number 34. That is, in fact, the parking lot there of Joe's Crab Shack.
That is.
Where in relationship to Mila's Spa is Joe's Crab Shack?
If you're sitting in the parking lot of Joe's Crab Shack as it's depicted, and your car was backed into a spot, say next to the white car right there, if you look to your left across the street is where Mila's Spa would be.
Now, when you made contact with Mr. Wilson, could you please describe what his demeanor was like?
He seemed nervous, and when I spoke to him, he seemed a little defensive and uncooperative.
Did you know anything he was wearing at the time?
He was shirtless, and I remember he was wearing a pair of pants that seemed to didn't fit him at the time.
And do you see the person that you made contact with there at Joe's Crab Shack in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
Would you please point him out and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's sitting to my right, and he's wearing a suit with a black tie.
How you doing? What's going on, man? You're waiting on your girlfriend? Oh, okay. That's no problem. No, I got a call. Somebody was sitting in their car and everything like that. So. Oh, okay. She's on her way now. L41. Gonna need a couple more units. Don't go anywhere. Hey.
Now, Mr. McCormick, when you made contact with Mr. Wilson, did he appear to understand everything that you were telling him?
Yes.
And was he responding in kind to you?
He was basically denying everything that I was asking him to do.
When you're having a conversation with him, you were giving him certain commands and you were asking questions of him. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was he responding appropriately? By appropriately, I mean if one asks you if you had breakfast this morning and one would respond, yes, I had cereal, that would be an example of appropriate response. Was he responding to you appropriately?
Not complying to my commands, but yes, he was responding appropriately.
And when you told him specifically about a battery that occurred that morning, what was his response to you?
That there was no battery.
And he continued to deny that.
That's correct.
And when you advised him that you were going to detain him, he opted to leave the scene as an alternative choice to what you were telling him. Is that right?
Ultimately, yes, that was the outcome.
Is there anything else in that video that we were not able to understand that you recall specifically that Mr. Wilson had told you?
Not that I recall.
Did you follow, or did you continue to follow him?
I did for a short period of time
Okay. Why did you stop?
because of the time of day and the amount of traffic on the road. It was around lunchtime. It's somewhere there near lunchtime, and the amount of people on the road. At the time, I only had a non-pursuitable offense.
What does that mean?
I only had misdemeanor battery at the time.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, there was no probable cause to continue any type of pursuit or have any other officers try to locate him at the time because of the nature of the offense we were dealing with.
And would that have been the protocol of your office?
Yes, that is.
Okay, fair enough.
Life and safety of the community comes first.
Thank you.
웨이드는 도주에 성공했고 포트마이어스에서 케이프 코럴의 핸콕 브리지 파크웨이에 있는 한 사업장까지 약 10km를 운전해 갔습니다. 궁지에 몰린 웨이드는 전 직장에서 알게 된 사업가인 조 씨에게 접근하였죠. 그는 그곳을 벗어날 버스표를 살 돈이 없다며 돈을 빌려달라고 애원하였습니다. 조 씨가 거절하자 웨이드는 흥분한 상태로 말했죠. 아니 조 씨, 당신은 이해 못하고 있어요. 난 어젯밤에 사람들을 죽였다고요. 이 말을 듣고 놀란 조 씨는 즉시 밖으로 달아나서 911을 신고하였습니다.
I have a very unstable man that I guess wanted at my office, Hancock Bridge Parkway. He's got tattoos, he's shirtless, he's killed some people, and he just hurt a girl in Hancock Bridge Parkway. Okay. What is the phone number you're calling from? 239. Yes, okay, tell me exactly what happened. The gentleman's name is Wade something. I have no idea. I went back to my office, my business there, and he was there. He was just a cordial friend of a friend associate. Just did something bad, I guess, and was running from somebody, but I need to get him out of my place. And he's saying he's done all these crazy things to somebody and has a stolen car there. It's very odd. Very, very odd.
Mr. Luckage, when you had made that 911 call, you indicated that you went to a property behind the Mateos graphic, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you go after you made that 911 call?
I stayed at 160 Hunter Boulevard until the officers called me back over to 2309 Hancock because they could not find him in the building. So I walked through the building with them to kind of show them some nooks and crannies that he could have been. And from there on throughout the day into the later hours, I was at Hancock with the officers.
And Mr. Wilson was nowhere to be found, is that correct?
No.
Did you know where he went?
No.
Okay. Do you see Mr. Wilson here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you please point him out and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's right there in the blue jacket.
Judge, let the record reflect Mr. Luckage is identified, Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
And did everything you testified to occur here in Lee County, sir?
Yes.
경찰이 신속하게 현장에 도착했지만 웨이드는 찾을 수 없었습니다. 수색 중의 케이프 코럴 경찰국은 웨이드가 멜리사에 대한 폭행으로 포트마이어스 경찰국에서도 수배 중이라는 것을 알게 되었습니다. 케이프 코럴 경관들은 주변을 봉쇄하고 광범위하게 수색했지만 웨이드는 잡히지 않았죠. 케이프 코럴 경찰이 그의 도주에 대처하는 동안 근처에서 또 다른 긴급 상황이 발생했다는 연락을 받았습니다. 43세의 두 자녀를 둔 다이앤 루이즈가 실종되었다는 연락이었죠. 그녀는 아침에 출근하지 않았고 오후 4시경 실종 신고가 접수된 상태였습니다. 그리고 그녀의 지갑은 나중에 도로가에서 버려진 채 발견되었죠. 이렇게 다이앤의 실종 수사는 또 다른 범죄 가능성을 시사했고 이에 경찰은 그녀를 실종 및 위험에 빠진 피해자로 분류하였습니다. 그러던 중 검은색 닛산 베르사가 오전 10시 15분에서 11시 15분 사이에 다이앤이 마지막으로 목격된 지역 근처에서 동쪽으로 이동하는 것이 목격되었다는 제보를 받았습니다. 웨이드 윌슨이 다이앤의 실종과 깊은 관련이 있음을 보여주는 증거였죠. 그리고 그날 저녁 경찰은 그들이 기다려왔던 실마리를 얻게 되었습니다. 한 형사는 미리 웨이드의 친부에게 연락하여 웨이드가 연락을 주면 경찰에 알려달라고 해둔 상태였기 때문이었죠.
Now, did he end up calling you later that evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you in that call that evening?
The final call?
Nope, the call the call before the final call?
He just told me, you know, he did something. There was 2 people gone that would not be back. He said, I'm a killer. You know, I just told him to call me back. I just thought it was another story, you know.
So at this point, when he says that there were 2 people that wouldn't be with us and that he was a killer, did you put a lot of weight into that?
No, ma'am.
Do you think he was just telling you a story?
He's a good storyteller.
So did he then call you back a 3rd time?
Yes, ma'am.
What time did he call you back?
It was around 10 o'clock.
I want to go back to that dinner time call. When he talked about these 2 people who were no longer with us and that he was a killer, did he show any type of remorse?
No, ma'am.
So let's go now to the 10 o'clock call. Again, your wife knew about kind of what was going on during that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And when he called back at 10, did he go into more details about what he had told you earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's start with the first girl. If you could tell the jurors, what did he tell you?
He just said he met a girl at a bar. They went back to her house, hung out for a little bit, and then she fell asleep.
What did he say happened after she fell asleep?
He said he got on top of her and choked her.
What name did he call her? Did he refer to her in a derogatory term?
He said, I choked that bitch.
Okay. And what did he say he did after he choked her?
He said he stayed in the house for a little while, and then he rolled her up and was going to try to put her in her trunk, but he couldn't lift her.
Did he say why he was unable to put her in her trunk?
He said that he felt like rigor mortis had started to set in.
And does rigor mortis make your body stiff? You didn't know?
I think so.
So he just told you that that was the reason that he couldn't lift her and get her into her trunk?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he said her trunk, it was the trunk of her car he was going to put her in?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did he tell you he did when he couldn't get her body into her own trunk?
He left her there and took her car.
What did he say about the second girl?
He said he saw her walking down the street and stopped and asked her for directions. And she got in the car with him.
What did he say happened once she got in the car with him?
He said he reached over and choked her.
And did he tell you that he choked her while he was driving?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what did he say happened after he choked her?
He said he was looking for a place to put her body.
Did he find a place where he eventually dumped her body?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he tell you about the situation when he got to the place where he was going to dump her body?
He said that he pulled her out of the car and realized that she was still breathing.
So what did he tell you he did when he realized she's still breathing?
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
Now, the whole time that he's telling you these details, is your wife hearing any of these details?
I had the phone on speakerphone.
Now, prior to him telling you these details, how did you feel about turning him in to law enforcement?
I initially wanted to help him.
Did you feel conflicted about giving him over to law enforcement initially?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point when you're talking with him, did that feeling change?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
I just thought, you know, what if that was my mom or my daughter or sister or wife? I would want somebody to do that.
And did you have additional concerns of what might happen if you didn't turn him into law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that, sir?
He would have done it again.
Now, after he's telling you all these details, do you know where he's at when he's telling you these things?
I just knew he was in a house that he broke into when he was running from the police.
Did you know the actual address of this house he broke into?
No, ma'am.
Now, when you were talking to him and you decided that you needed to give the information to law enforcement about his whereabouts, how did you get that address from him?
I told him I was going to send him an Uber and I needed the address.
웨이드의 친아버지는 아들의 소재를 형사에게 전달했고 형사는 이 정보를 미국 연방보안관 도주자 전담반에 전달했습니다. 웨이드는 한 부부의 집에 침입해 숨어 있었는데 다행히도 그 부부는 바로 그날 아침 오하이오로 떠난 상태였습니다. 수사관들은 그 집 앞으로 향했고 확성기로 약 30분 동안 주택에서 나오라는 명령을 내렸습니다. 그 결과 웨이드는 정문을 열었고 수사관들은 별다른 사고 없이 그를 체포하는 데 성공하였죠. 이후 그는 케이프 코럴 경찰국으로 이송되어 입건된 후 리카운티 구치소로 이송되었습니다. 여기서 웨이드는 여자친구인 멜리사에게 전화를 하여 크리스틴 멜튼과 다이앤 루이즈를 살해했다고 자백했습니다. 이 통화는 고스란히 녹음되어 검찰의 손에 들어갔죠. 그리고 이 사건이 6주가 지났을 때 검찰은 웨이드 윌슨의 사건에 대한 중요한 발표를 하기 위해 기자회견을 열었습니다.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I am State Attorney Amira Fox, and I stand here today with Cape Coral Police Chief Dave Newland and our teams from both our offices to announce the indictment of Wade Stephen Wilson for the murders of Christine Melton, age 35, and Diane Ruiz, 43, both of Cape Coral. The Lee County Grand Jury met today and returned an indictment against Wilson for 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. He was also indicted for 1 count each of battery, grand theft of a motor vehicle, burglary of a dwelling, and first-degree petty theft. Christine Melton was found dead in her Cape Coral home on October 7th. The body of Diane Ruiz was found on October 12th in a field in Cape Coral, 4 days after she was reported missing. I hope today's indictment brings some small comfort to the families of these victims. These 2 women were preyed upon by the defendant, and their murders impacted their families and shook our community. The Cape Coral Police Department investigated these homicides and the events leading up to them, which led to the arrest of the defendant. And I want to say a huge thank you to Chief Newland, his command staff, and the 2 detectives who worked this case, among others who stand up here with us today, Detective Bell and Detective Jones, and thank them for the absolutely excellent investigative work. They were meticulous, they were patient, and that is why we stand here today with a successful indictment for 2 counts of first-degree murder.
다음날 웨이드는 원격 화상을 통해 이 혐의들에 대한 최초 법정 출석을 했습니다.
Wilson, 19 CF 568. Mr. Wilson, you're charged with first-degree murder, grand theft auto, battery, a second first-degree murder, burglary of a dwelling, occupied, and petty theft. The state want to be heard?
Briefly, Judge, Andreas Gardner on behalf of the state. The state respectfully requesting Mr. Wilson be held no bond.
Defense?
Your Honor, charge and answer public defense simply Judge Manning took testimony and signed the case no bond. Any other bond motions will be conducted with the trial judge.
Very good. Mr. Wilson will be held without bond. Your court date is November 25th, 2019 at 8:30 a.m. in courtroom 4A. If somehow you get out of jail, you will have no contact directly. Is that someone? All right. You will have no contact directly or indirectly with Melissa Lynn Montez. Is away from 29 Wilson Street in Fort Myers, Florida. You understand that, sir?
Sure.
That's all for today.
웨이드는 2019년 10월 8일 새벽에 체포된 이후 보석 없이 구금되어 있었습니다. 그의 재판은 잦은 연기로 인해 수년간 지연되었습니다. 이 기간 동안 웨이드는 나치의 상징을 포함한 많은 얼굴 문신을 새기는 등 약간 개인적인 변화를 겪었습니다. 이에 대응하여 피고 측 변호사는 이런 문신들이 배심원들에게 편견을 줄 수 있다며 법원에 얼굴 화장을 허가해 줄 것을 요청했습니다. 법원은 이 요청을 승인했지만 웨이드는 결국 화장하지 않기로 결정하였죠. 그리고 웨이드의 탈옥 시도가 한 번 있은 후 마침내 재판이 열렸습니다. 2024년 6월 10일 배심원단이 구성되었고 재판에서 최초 변론이 진행되었습니다. 재판 중 여러 증인들이 나와서 웨이드가 멜튼과 루이즈의 살인을 자백했다고 증언했습니다. 그리고 피고 측 변호사는 사건의 사실관계를 많이 다루진 않았지만 단지 정신 이상으로 형 감경을 주장하였습니다. 이렇게 재판은 거의 검찰 측의 분위기대로 흘러왔고 결국 2시간의 배심원단 심의 후 판결에 도달하였습니다.
All right, do you have the verdict form? All right, we pass that to the bailiff. Verdict form appears to be in order. I'll have the clerk publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 20th Judicial Circuit, in Fort Lee County, Florida, criminal action. State of Florida versus Wade Wilson. Case number 19 CF 0568. Verdict. We, the jury, finds as follow as to the defendant in this case. Count 1, first-degree murder, Christine Melton. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Count 2, grand theft motor vehicle. The defendant is guilty of grand theft motor vehicle. Count 3, battery. The defendant is guilty of battery. Count 4, first-degree murder, Diane Ruiz. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
배심원단은 웨이드 윌슨에 대해 크리스틴 멜튼과 다인 루이즈에 대한 1급 살인을 포함한 모든 공소 사실에 대해 유죄를 선고했습니다. 그리고 이후에 열린 선고 재판에서 사형에 직면한 웨이드는 아주 여유로운 모습을 보여주었습니다.
Well, Mr. Wilson, you have an opportunity, just like during any of the other phases of. Well, let me just finish real quick. Any other phases during the case, if you want to address the court, I would permit you to do that. Obviously, everything's recorded, but you would have that opportunity if you wish. No one can prevent you from addressing the court if you wish to, and no one can make you address the court if you don't want to. So it is a decision that's solely left up to you if you want to address the court or not.
Not today. Later, when I come back, I will. Today,
okay.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
The totality of the circumstances warrants that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced to death for each count of first-degree murder. Accordingly, it is ordered and adjudged that the defendant, Wade Stephen Wilson, be sentenced as follows. Count 1, first-degree murder of Christine Melton. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 2, grand theft of a motor vehicle. The defendant is sentenced to 5 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 3, battery. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. Count 4, first-degree murder of Diane Ruiz. The defendant is hereby sentenced to death. Count 5, the burglary of a dwelling. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. Count 6, petty theft. The defendant is hereby sentenced to 364 days in the Lee County Jail. The defendant is given credit for all time served on this case on all counts. All counts are to run concurrent with each other, meaning at the same time. All statutorily mandated fines, fees, and costs as announced on the record are imposed, and the defendant is committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections for execution of this sentence as provided by law. The defendant is hereby notified that these convictions and sentences are subject to automatic review by the Florida Supreme Court. If he cannot afford an attorney to represent him in any appeal, the court will appoint one for him. Mr. Wilson, you will be fingerprinted and remanded to the Sheriff's Department. You'll be held without bond and for transport to the Department of Corrections when it's appropriate.
If nothing else, then we're adjourned.
이 사건에서는 많은 증인들이 법정에 출석했지만 그중 웨이드의 친아버지인 스티븐이 가장 눈에 띄었습니다. 15살의 웨이드를 낳아서 입양을 보내야만 하는 어려운 결정을 했었죠. 그 일 때문에 웨이드에게 평생 죄책감을 안고 살아가고 있었는데 이런 일을 저질렀다는 아들의 얘기를 듣고 경찰에 넘기기로 결정하기까지는 정말 깊은 고심이 뒤따랐을 것입니다. 하지만 스티븐은 평생 죄책감을 느껴왔던 아들을 선택하기 대신 그의 행동으로 인해 사회에 미칠 악영향을 더 우선적으로 판단하였죠. 그리고 나서 올바른 선택을 했습니다. 같은 상황에 놓인 부모라면 과연 스티븐과 같은 결정을 내릴 수 있을 만한 사람이 얼마나 될지 모르겠습니다만 적어도 여러분이라면 이렇게 옳은 결정을 내릴 수 있을 것이라 믿습니다. 그럼 오늘 킹사건 이야기는 여기서 마치겠습니다. 오늘도 함께 해주신 여러분께 정말 감사드립니다. 그리고 항상 그렇듯 다음에 만날 때까지 모두 건강하고 안전한 나날 되셨으면 합니다. 저는 톰슨이었습니다.
Five,